Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and SJW's always double down. Well, it's another late night, another dark stream out in the darkness. Kind of like this, actually. A little different than doing it in my office, but something about something about the solitude and the solace of the night when everybody else is turned in, the crickets and the ocean and all that stuff. It's not bad at all. So anyhow, first of all, I'm very pleased to be able to observe that you have a rare 1-2 combination in political philosophy right now. SJW's Always Double Down is the #1 bestseller in Amazon's political philosophy category, and the #2 bestseller is actually its predecessor, SJW's Always Lie. And so that's success by any measure. Now, what do we mean by success? What is success? How do you judge success? For me, I think I draw upon something that Ludwig von Mises says in Human Action. He says the only individual who can provide any meaning to a man's action is the man himself. And what he means by that is everyone else can try to decipher what your motivations are for your actions, but no one can say for sure. Everyone is basing their determination on either their own motivations or on their interpretations of your actions that are based on human standards of behavior. And that doesn't mean that they're necessarily wrong. It doesn't mean you cannot do it. But it means that the only person who can definitively say whether any of those people are correct is the person himself. And I think that holds particularly true for success, because we all have different goals. There's people who write for money. There's people who write for fame. There's people who write for posterity, which is entirely different than fame. There are people who write out of vanity. There's people who write to make a difference in the world. And, other people write for combinations of those different reasons and would put them in different orders. I don't even know, to be honest with you. I'm not even certain entirely what my motivations are, because my motivations change on the basis of each book. What would have been success, selling 25,000 copies of a book would have struck me as being unsuccessful after my first novel. My first novel sold 35,000 copies. But that was 35,000 mass market paperbacks pushed hard by pocket books. So then as time went on, and then I started publishing my own stuff with Castalia House, suddenly 25,000 copies looks pretty damn good. So a lot of it is a matter of your perspective. For me, um, one of the important things was I wanted to write stuff that was going to make a difference, stuff that was original, and I wanted it to, in order for it to do either of those things, it needed to reach a decent audience. I never had any interest or concern about hitting the New York Times bestseller list. So there are no illusions of that. But I really did want it to, hit the number one, become the number one bestseller in political philosophy. I was pretty sure it would. But that was, one of my primary goals. And my other goal was I wanted to not disappoint the people who thought so highly of the first one. And so those were really my two goals for that particular book, and it appears to have done that. Based on the reviews, based on the based on what people are saying, and obviously, it was able to hit the mark in terms of becoming the bestseller in its category. So for me, the books, both SJW's Always Lie and SJW's Always Double Down, are successful. They're successes. Those metrics might not work for somebody else. Somebody else might have a goal of selling 100,000 books. Someone else might have a goal of making the New York Times bestseller list. Someone else might have a goal of, being reviewed by a major newspaper. And that's all okay. I don't have any objections to those things if that's what people want to do. I have no interest whatsoever in having Hollywood doing anything with any of my books, because I don't want anything to do with those people, for reasons that are obviously becoming clear. I hope that they are useful in helping to save the vestiges of Western civilization that remain. I hope they're useful in rebuilding it. But there's a lot of, probably the most important thing is encouraging other people to act and to be motivated to move into action to do something themselves. There's only so much that one person can do. There's only so many books that you can write. There's only so many ideas that you're going to have. And there's only so long that your talent, such as it is going to remain with you. There's few things, about the only thing more painful than watching an over-the-hill athlete still trying to compete. Watching Peyton Manning throw those, weak ducks at the end of his career. The only thing more painful than that is reading a book by an author who is well past his prime and hasn't realized it yet. There's a book called The October Horse, by the woman who wrote the Rome novels. She also wrote a fairly famous romance novel. And it was amazing how the quality of the book just simply fell off a cliff. Whereas the other books were interesting, the previous books were interesting, well plotted, had characters who really held your interest. It was just boring and tedious and totally uninteresting. I didn't even come close to finishing it. And you can't necessarily blame people. If that's what they do, and if that's how they're earning a living, they have to do it. But it's not. It's a really sad thing. I hope that when I get to that point, because every writer gets to that point eventually, or almost every writer, you know, that I'll have the good sense to give it up and switch to writing aphorisms or memoirs. You know? I mean, there are some whose minds remain formidable up to the end. Peter Drucker, I think, was one of those. I had the good fortune to talk to him when he was not long before he died, and it was interesting to see that the guy still had it. So, new info on Alt Hero. Well, I'm going to put hopefully a new reward up tomorrow relating to posters. Actually, I've got a good question. I mean, here that's a pretty good question. You know, what's a reasonable price, or what's really the best way to put posters up there? Would it be to list them one at a time? Would it be to, you know, just basically say it's, you know, whatever for a poster? I don't know, $15-20 for a poster, and then let the person decide what poster they want. You know, I'm not sure exactly how to go about it. That's one of the reasons why I didn't get it put up there today. I wasn't able to figure out what the best way to do it would be. You know, one thing you have to keep in mind is that I'm new to both comics and to crowdfunding, and so I don't really know what. Well, the problem with the sets thing is that, you know, we probably need, one of them probably has to be a map. One of them probably has to be something with a logo and the various characters. And then, but then people might also like specific character pinups. We've actually got several Rebel pinups that are I haven't released yet, and so, you know, we'll have to see how it goes. But anyhow, we'll come up with something. Hopefully, it'll be something that will make sense, and you know, I mean, I think we'll probably have, if we do sets, there'll probably be 2 poster sets. I think 3 posters would be a bit much. Yeah, Rebel is astonishingly popular for a character who hasn't appeared in an actual comic yet. You know, obviously we're in the process of rectifying that, but it's interesting, and so we're not even thinking about animation. That's getting way ahead, way ahead. 3 poster sets get maximum play. Okay, that's good to know. You know, so maybe we'll do something like have a map, have the various characters in the logo, and then, oh, I see, Rebel set. Yeah, we can probably work that out. I'll sort it out somehow. I think if we post the new Rebel pinup, that a lot of people are going to be pretty enthusiastic about the posters and whatnot. Anyhow, I personally I want the map. I'm really excited about the map. We got a really good cartographer, and so I think it's going to be pretty awesome. So, yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing any gender swapping, so don't worry about that. But to get back to success, you know, it's interesting. When we launched before we launched the free starter, we had people saying, "Oh, you know, it's going to be a failure. It's going to be a sad humiliation, blah blah blah." You know, and here we are. We've still got 2 weeks left, and it's already at 5 times over goal. If the posters prove to be popular, we're probably going to be, you know, it's probably going to be up towards 150 in fairly short order. By the way, what's a reasonable price for a 3-poster set anyhow? That would be helpful if for a 3-poster set including shipping. I've looked around and I looked around the internet and the prices are just all over the place. From practically nothing to way more than I think you could possibly charge in good conscience. 10 for 3 is not a reasonable price, especially not for shipping. See, here we are all over the place. Everything from 10 to 50. Well, at least that's consistent with what I looked up. So, no, we're not printing them in different countries. How many people do you think want them? Come on. So anyhow, we'll sort it out. But to get to, the interesting thing though to me is, for me the project was successful when it hit its goal, and then the fact that we were able to bring on somebody like Chuck Dixon took it from successful to very successful, and everything else was just the icing on the cake. It doesn't really, from a personal standpoint, I'm not really concerned about where the total ends up being. I probably in the future will be concerned about that, just in order to keep track of things. But, it's just, now we're mainly focused on how do we produce it at the level of quality that we want it to have. That's what's going to define success, is doing something that we deem to be good. Another thing. No, we're not going to start a new campaign when this one finishes. I've got plenty of work to do with Voxday and plenty of work to do with Alt Hero, to say nothing of getting a Sea of Skulls done. So, and we've also got some pretty important books coming out as well, especially the one from Moira Greyland called The Last Closet, which is a very, very dark and disturbing book, but is also kind of inspiring in a way. So, there's lots going on. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I want to make sure that I've delivered on the 2 campaigns that we have launched before we even think about doing anything else. I have no interest whatsoever in turning it into Star Citizen. That's the thing. A lot of us in the gaming industry have looked very carefully at what's been going on, and one of the problems is just that they got carried away by their success, and you need to be careful about that. I don't think it's likely that any of the comics will be out before the end of the year. That just doesn't seem practical to me. We're already in October, so. But we'll get them out in a reasonable time frame, and you can be assured that we're working hard on them. You got to keep in mind the campaign hasn't even ended yet, so yeah, I think the second quarter of 2018 is probably when the first paperback and hardcover are going to come out, which would be 3 volumes in all. So that would be my suspicion. So, but again, I'm not concerning myself with that too much until the campaign's done. Actually, I don't think that's correct. doing a new the model that I use for our campaigns is a miniatures company called Mantic, and they do 2 campaigns a year. All of their campaigns are well north, or most of their campaigns are well north of $1 million, and they use it to really gauge the level of interest in their new miniatures, and it really allows them to stabilize, to provide a stable basis for the business, because anything that they do, they know they've got significant market support for. And to me, that's the most valuable aspect of crowdfunding, is the ability to find out, okay, this is what people want, and this is not what people want. Rather than us guessing and saying, here, okay, we think you'll like this book, which is what we still do with Castalia House. I talked to a guy today whose book we're going to publish. And so, but what you don't understand is that an ongoing campaign is incredibly distracting. We're not getting, I've just been telling you, we're not getting this other stuff done because we're dealing with the campaign. If you're in, it's just like government. One of the problems of the Obama administration and the Clinton administration is that they tried to govern in campaign mode. You can't do both at the same time. Now theoretically you could do something like that if you had people who are devoted solely to the campaign and whatnot. But that's not where we are right now, And so, we will get it done, and we will deliver what we promised, and that will give us credibility for when we go on to the next one. Frankly, I don't see a lack of visibility being a big problem for Alt Hero. If you look at what we're doing, the comics will eventually be distributed on Amazon. No question about that. That's always been the plan. We'll probably look into that digital comic chronology thing that Amazon owns as well. But again, that's production stuff. That's that's stuff that we're going to be sitting down and addressing in detail once the campaign ends and once we find out, okay, exactly what we have to do. Well, right. That's exactly why I have no intention of doing another campaign, of any type with anything until the new year. There's just, like for example, it's kind of funny that sometimes folks don't realize the extent of our activities. You may not realize, but we've got several computer games that are just about ready to go into beta testing. We've got a lot of stuff that people don't know anything about, and one of them is, frankly, a potential game changer that could really, I think it's going to be widely imitated in some ways. So. But again, success is how you define it. Is it going to be, I'm not sure it's the type of game that's going to be massively profitable, even if we have tons and tons of players. It's hard to say. So, but we'll be putting out a call for some alpha testers soon. I'll announce it on the blog. Those of you, a number of you have probably helped with it. Some of you probably have some idea what I'm talking about. And it's fun. I've actually played it against Marku, and it works remarkably well. So, anyhow, that's about all I've got. I got a little time for a couple questions if you're interested. Apparently not so much. I don't talk about where I am, you know that. I'm totally against abortion. Uh, I didn't follow the first question. Um, are they still going to define it as a failure regardless of the amount? Of course, they always do. Um, yeah, I did say on the blog there would be poster options, but we ended up going on a wine tour that took us a lot longer than I expected. Yeah, the guy from a few days ago is going to be doing his Periscope soon. The Voxdiversity topics are, the initial one is going to be immigration and war. We will get to free trade before too long. I'm kind of want to dig into Steve Keen's arguments a little bit before I do that, just because I want to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. Are you ever going to acknowledge the repeated articles on your failure as being correct? No, why would I do that? They're not correct. No, I'm not hungover, just a bit tired. That may be. I doubt we're going to do that, though. I know better than to try to predict the Italians. Would I do a Periscope on homeschooling kids? Sure. No worries. So, well, thanks a lot. Thanks again, those of you who have helped make both Alt Hero and SJW is always double down successful. I appreciate it. I do like Jack London. Space Bunny will not do one on homeschooling. She has no interest whatsoever on being in the public eye. And I appreciate what all you guys do. Nothing that we do is even, people say this all the time. Oh, we love the fan. Da, da, da. They're just mouthing it. But I firmly believe that loyalty has to go two ways. There's nothing that bothers me more than watching the NFL, NASCAR, Marvel, whatever, taking their fans for granted and assuming that they can do whatever the hell they want and that people will just follow their lead. It doesn't work that way. And so it's always a two-way street. And, I listen to you guys as much as you listen to me. Now granted, I can't possibly, listen precisely to what everyone's saying because there's so much contradictory information. Let's price the posters at what, 10 or 50? But together as a community, we make a formidable team, and people recognize that. So have a good evening, and we'll see you soon.